The celebration of Mawlid, the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, is not something that was practiced by the Prophet himself, his companions radiyallahu anhum, or the early generations of Muslims known as the Salah. The origin of Mawlid as a celebration can be traced back several centuries after the advent of Islam, emerging from particular socio-political and cultural contexts, rather than from the teachings of the Prophet. Absence in early Islamic practice. In the early period of Islam, there is no evidence to suggest that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his companions, or the early generations celebrated the Prophet's birthday. The companions, who were the closest to the Prophet and best understood his teachings, did not observe this practice. Instead, their focus was on strictly adhering to the Sunnah, traditions, of the Prophet, and avoiding any innovation. In religious matters, the Fatimid dynasty's role in Egypt. The celebration of Mawlid is believed to have first been introduced by the Fatimid dynasty, a Shia Muslim caliphate that ruled Egypt and parts of North Africa from the 10th to the 12th centuries CE. Fatimids were known for promoting various religious and cultural ceremonies to solidify their rule and distinguish themselves from the Sunni Abbasid Caliphate. Among these ceremonies was the celebration of the birthdays of various religious figures, including that of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The Fatimids used these celebrations as a means of promoting their own religious identity and political authority. Public celebrations of Mawlid were grand events characterized by parades, feasts, and the recitation of poetry praising the Prophet. These events were intended to garner public support and legitimize the Fatimid rulers' claim to religious and political authority. The practice of celebrating Mawlid gradually spread to other parts of the Muslim world. It gained popularity in regions like Syria, Iraq, and the Indian subcontinent. The practice was later adopted by some Sunni Muslims, although its acceptance was not universal and remains a point of contention among Shia. As the practice spread, it began to receive scrutiny from Islamic scholars. Many scholars of the Salaf and subsequent generations expressed their concerns about Mawlid, viewing it as an innovation, bid'ah, that had no basis in the Quran or Sunnah. Ibn Taymiyyah, 728 AH, a prominent Islamic scholar, strongly opposed the celebration of Mawlid. He argued that it was an innovation that was not practiced by the early generations of Muslims, and that true love for the Prophet is shown by following his Sunnah, rather than introducing new practices. Imam al-Dahabi, d. 748 AH, and Ibn Kathir, d. 774 AH, also noted that the practice of Mawlid was not known to the early Muslims and that it was a later development. 5. Conclusion. The celebration of Mawlid did not originate from the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ or the practices of the early Muslim community. It appears to have been introduced by the Fatimid dynasty as a political and religious tool, and it later spread to other parts of the Muslim world. While it has become a popular practice in many Muslim-majority countries, it remains a topic of debate among scholars, many of whom argue that it is an innovation that should be avoided in favor of adhering strictly to the Sunnah. Understanding the origins of Mawlid highlights the importance of adhering to the teachings of the Prophet and his companions, who were closest to the pure and unaltered practice of Islam.